The most important question I got was, what is your legacy? Not a material legacy, but if life stops now, how do you want to be remembered? What is your frequency legacy? The Phoenix Frequency podcasts are a result from that question. When all seemed burnt in your life, the fertile ash of a phoenix is filled with compassion, love, forgiveness, empowerment, intuition, wisdom, generosity, creativity, resilience, a balance of an evolution and involution, what is needed to rise. I am Nienke van Bezooyen and I live my Phoenix frequencies. On a weekly basis, I share my insights, my resources, and I have guests who Phoenix themselves. If it resonates to you, you're welcome to rise. Welcome to the Phoenix Frequencies. Can you just pause and listen? We live in a world where conversations must have a direction, comfort, understanding, closure. But grief doesn't want a direction, it wants space. The story of grief rarely comes out all at once. The first step is to let it out. The second layer is to understand it. The times after that, to feel where there still are chaves. Sometimes, much later, it's to discover what was underneath all along. A fear that has been bypassed, a sense of guilt, a loss that only speaks when we're safe. Grief has many directions. It can be living grief, it can be grief of what wasn't working anymore, of someone you lost in life. But if we come from a place where loss only speaks when it feels safe, that's often where people get stuck. Not in what they say, but mostly consistently don't say. Grief then repeats itself, not as a weakness, but as an echo. It cycles back to the same sentences, but always with a new weight, a new light. And that's exactly when the listener becomes restless. After all, we already know the story, isn't it? Situation is clear, comfort has been given, advice has been offered. There's the tendency to change the subject, and this is even more fatal, to gently say, maybe you should start looking forward a bit. What we're actually saying is, I don't know how to stay here with you in my listening. Yes, I believe that's exactly what is needed, because listening requires slowing down. It requires not knowing. It requires the discomfort of being unable to do anything or staying present while everything inside wants you to fix things. And perhaps, if you wait then, you will hear something else. Not because it's new, but because it finally found its space. It's precisely that repetition, that circling around in the pain, where the ashes begin to shift. Because the person who speaks their truth over and over isn't just grieving. They are sculpting, artisans. You are touching the fragments of your former existence to feel which parts are still warm and which have finally grown cold and can rest in the ashes. In healthcare, in coaching, and truthfully in life, we're trained to look away from the ashes. We want to see the phoenix fly. We want to see the resurrection, the strength, the new version of the person standing before us. But the phoenix cannot rise if the ashes have not been fully felt. When the listener grows restless and asks for someone to look forward, we essentially pulling them out of the fire prematurely. True listening is the willingness to sit with those ashes together, without a pressure to fly just yet. It requires the courage to acknowledge that the redesign of life doesn't begin with a shiny new plan, awesome goals, but with the raw honesty of the now. That honesty only surfaces when the silence no longer needs to be filled with solutions, your solutions. Perhaps that's the deepest connection we can make, giving the other person the space to let not only the grief, but also the silence and the not knowing exist. Because only when the story is allowed to fully fade away in the space you provide, does the first vibration of something new emerge, very gently, from the very bottom, the ashes. Not because we stirred there, but because we stayed when it matters most. So when you listen to someone, you can do some little check-ins. If your own thoughts are ruling you, if you are able to hear words of repetition, can you hear the other story you heard so often before again? Do you get restless? And what do you need to listen truly? The psychologist Manu Kiese from Belgium says it beautifully, and I invite you to check this. If you think you're listening, just listen again. So you can hold the person, the phoenix in the ashes. You can hold them to create the courage, to create the strength by feeling held and supported. Make them rise again. Because only when you can see from the ashes what remains, you can truly step into the art of rising again. And the listener just has to listen. Just hold space. Holding space is the act of walking alongside another person without judgment, without trying to fix them, and without impacting their outcome. It's creating a safe container where someone can fall apart or rise up, knowing that they're fully supported through listening. To hold space means to provide a physical, mental, and emotional room for someone, including yourself, to experience their truth. It's about being conscious witness to a process, allowing it to unfold at its own pace without rushing to a solution. In the process of rising from the ashes, holding space is the stillness between the fire and the flight. It's a quiet, steady frequency that allows the redesign of life to take place in a safe and honest environment through listening. So holding space is being the anchor in someone else's storm, so they have the freedom to find their own way back and rise. Through listening, that might not only serve them, but also helps you to see where you can rise.